starting now. Um, of course, I want to welcome the new members. We have I know we have two or three members who just joined this month, but we also have, I would say at least a half a dozen members who have joined since last year, and so haven't seen any of this presentation. It's been updated, of course, for those of you who were here last year. But so there are, you know, at least a half a dozen people who have not uh, learned anything at all about this process. So thank you for coming and learning all about how we decide what our program is. Um, I also wanted to mention that we are a grassroots organization. We've been around for 103 years. We're nonpartisan. We're a 501c3. Thank you. Rita nods that I've said that correctly. And that we're most known for registering voters. That's kind of our thing. We used to do a debate back in the 60s and 70s, but that got to be too uh, full of conflict and partisan, and so we no longer do that. That was at the national level. Um, but we also educate voters, encourage voters. We advocate for our positions. We carefully study issues to come to a position. And then each year we come together to decide on our plan for all of what the league does. So for all of the activities that we engage in, and um, at the league, that's called program. So this is our program planning, our the beginning of our program planning. Well, I'll go. I don't want to duplicate what's on the slide. So that's what we'll start today, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start my presentation. And thank you to Lisa and Janelle who are assisting me today, letting people in, answering questions, making sure everybody's muted. I appreciate that. So, this applies a little bit more in person, and I'm going to try not to just read slides to you. But we do have some community norms that we try to follow with all of our meetings, and respecting each other's time. I try to start on time as much as possible so that your time is respected. It's a little harder to have side talk when Lisa's on the mute button. So anyway, I'll let you just take a look at these for a second. One of the important ones I think is aim for get go, good enough to go, not perfection. I have a little bit of trouble with that one. Okay. And what is program? So we use program in a slightly different way at the league than you might think of a program. It's, not a television program. It's not a guest speaker for one of our meetings, but program is actually the education. It's the set of activities, the advocacy, the materials, the budget. It's all of that we pull together every year to do the work that we do. And we don't want to do that in just a random way with lots of people doing different things and not communicating. We really want this to be a unified effort. So we come together to plan program once a year. This year, we are doing it at the local level. Well, I may be skipping ahead. So, why do we do program planning? I stole this definition from Corrine, who is our Get Out the Vote chairperson, and she did a meeting recently where she defined a project, and I thought it's a really great definition, that it is an individual or collaborative enterprise that is carefully planned to achieve a particular aim. So the careful planning part is the part I like the best because that's the hardest part. So sometimes we have to be reminded that we need to do the careful planning part before we can get to the execution part. So what do we do when we plan program? Well, a little history. Last year, what we did was we met in small groups. We had 3 or 4 meetings. Well, we started with this meeting with everybody, and then we moved to small group meetings that lasted about an hour and a half, and where we did some brainstorming. We answered some questions. We talked about what do we value as an organization? What do we prioritize? What are we going to work on this year? And then how do we work on those things? How will we get to those goals that we've set? We discussed our goals as well. So, and I see 2 people in the waiting room. If somebody could let them in, please. Um, during program planning, during program planning last year, we had these small group meetings, and then we wrote the board wrote a plan, which we then voted in. And that plan was a 2-year plan. So this year we get to coast just a little bit. We're going to go through the process of program planning, but we are not actually going to do small group meetings to brainstorm or to discuss our advocacy plan for 2024 because we already decided that last year. This year is a year for execution. We have done good, hard work starting with brainstorming, coming up with some fantastic new ideas that you'll hear about, and continuing some programs that we've done for years. And we've done some amazing planning behind the scenes, organizing. We have spreadsheets full of churches and candidate information and dates and calendars and all kinds of things that we've put together to help us this year execute our plan. Okay, well this year, in addition to reviewing our plan from last year, we will learn about the ongoing election administration study. And so the study committee, and I hope I didn't psych you out that you were off the hook for going to a small group meeting because we are still going to go to a small group meeting. Um, because the study committee will host a series of informative meetings. They'll lead discussions and recommend a new position or more than one new position for adoption by LWBKC. I went to we had these meetings last year as well because this is the second year for the election administration study, and so we did a series of small election administration consensus meetings last year, and I went to 2 or 3 of them, and I have to say that was some of the most um, impressive, interesting, um, smart, informed discussion I've ever heard. And so I want to encourage you to go to those, um, really enthusiastically go to these meetings. They were really interesting and thought provoking. So, oh, I want to also go back because during this process, this entire process, not just the election administration, we want to turn an eye to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we could do that in lots of ways, from where we put our money. Do we use vendors that are minority owned, businesses that are minority owned? Where do we take our materials? Do we provide written materials to the community in Brookside, or do we go to high potential, low resources, low resourced communities? So those are some conversations that we want to have as we plan our program. Okay, what are positions? Positions are stances that we take as an organization based on thorough deliberative study. Uh, that the kind of study that we're talking about is the study is that the election administration committee is doing right now. Um, what we're talking about is graduate level research, um, with primary resources and tons of background information. And so we we either at the local, state, or national level come together in small groups, take on a study, and then present our findings to the membership. And then we have small group meetings where the membership talks about these, what they've found in the study, and they discuss um, some questions, and then at the end, Greg will talk about this a little bit more. Um, at the end of this process, we'll have some recommended positions that will then be voted in or not voted in um, by the membership at large. And once we have those positions, then we can advocate. So, again, we'll talk about that later. So, why do we embark on a study? Because times change, people change, events and actions require new positions. Here's a position that we added last year. That's LWVKC JCP supports the retention of the current Missouri requirement that challengers be eligible voters in the relevant jurisdiction. So we took this position because there was some talk in the legislature that or maybe they even voted it in, I can't remember, that anybody from any state can come and can become challengers. Well, some people in the league said, we don't think that's right. Let's do a study. And so we did a study. I'm simplifying, of course, that's not exactly how it happened, but we did a study, and as part of that process, the results of the study were presented, and the members decided, yes, there's evidence that this is a good thing. What we have said here in this position is a good thing. We agree on it, and we're going to vote this in. So now we have a new position, and now I can write a letter to the editor of the newspaper in favor of require retaining the current Missouri requirement that challengers are eligible voters, have to be eligible voters in the relevant district. Okay, and Greg, I'm going to let you talk for just a few minutes about the election administration study in a little bit more detail.
Sure. So, and really, you've done a great job in teeing it up. One of the uh, big points about this whole study process, this is not an academic exercise. We are really tooling this so that we can actually advocate and we can actually do things. And I'll give you one other example. One of the results of the study was a position that addressed stronger penalties for people that harass election workers, because there's been widespread harassment of election workers. Well, the membership approved a position, and that position is now available for us for advocacy. And just by coincidence, there is a bill at the Missouri legislature that for which there's going to be a hearing on Tuesday, and we are now equipped to speak to that bill, because number one, because we have a position. Number two, we have at the ready some talking points about that came out of the study. So that's the other thing. The other thing about these consensus meetings is not a one-way stream of information from the study committee to the membership. As Ann mentioned, there was a whole lot of wisdom in the room from league membership, and principally because I think more than 2/3 of the people at those meetings had worked in elections, and so they had a whole lot of information. And I'll give you an example for this election worker protection thing. One of the points that the committee didn't even have, but came from the membership, is that retention of election workers is important because they have all of this experience, and retention of that experience is very necessary. Okay, and then the third thing is, in these consensus meetings, it allows us as a league to get on the same page. We understand the same vocabulary. All right, moving fast forward to this slide. So these are the themes that we will be discussing. Automatic voter registration, which has resulted in some material improvement in voter registration in other states where it's been done. Missouri's historic non-compliance with the Motor Voter Act. Lots of stuff to discuss there. And then this is something that's existential. This is what we do as the League of Women Voters, as we register voters. Well, there are our attempts in legislation that was passed in 2022 that restricted the league's ability to register voters and to talk about absentee voting. And that legislation has been stayed, so we are able to continue to go out and register voters. In Kansas, when similar legislation was passed, they did not continue to register voters. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about roll management in an era in which a lot of states are doing purges. And then this last one, college voters, this is, let's say, the surprise theme. Let's call it an iceberg. We started to dig a little bit, and there's just a whole lot more there than we thought at the start. So that one, I think, I'm just going to give a personal opinion. That one is a very interesting and open-ended topic. So, and that's my summary. And again, I'd encourage everyone to participate, to attend the informational meeting where we're going to roll out the presentation January 27th, and then they're on the calendar, 3 consensus meetings. You don't have to go to all 3. You should, in fact, go to only one, but we're making them 3 available so that everybody who has different schedules can make it.
Thank you, Greg. Excuse me. Thank you, Greg. And we talk about this in a little bit of detail in this presentation because, as I said before, but I want to make a little bit more clear, there are several components to program. The first is our advocacy plan, and then studies. Not any study is part of the program plan. And then we also affirmation of our positions. And so this is the most active part of our program planning this year are the consensus meetings and going and dealing with the election administration study. So what else do we do? Yeah, kind of gone over that already. So will we decide on our advocacy plan and will we make these decisions today? No. This process begins today and it ends in April at the annual meeting. The annual meeting is on April 27th this year, and I'll have some dates on a later slide. So what do we do today? Well, we'll talk about reviewing the LWV-US and the LWV-KC positions, and we heard about the current study. And then we'll also review our advocacy plan that we made last year that is good for the rest of the year. And then after we're done with that, we will meet together to learn about the current study. We'll have the small group consensus meetings. And then at our February Board of Directors meeting, the board will review and discuss the recommended program and advocacy plan. We will decide on that plan and we will vote on it in February so that we can present that to the members we like to give that to you a month before the annual meeting. So we'll present that to you by March 27th. And then what is the last step? The program process for 2024 ends at our annual meeting in April when we will vote on bylaw changes, positions, and to approve our advocacy plan. So let's take a little look at the LWV-US program. The LWV-US board recommends that program 2024-2026 that it will continue the campaign for making democracy work. So this is a program plan that they have had for at least 6-8 years, maybe. Sandy can nod if this was the program when he was president. But it's been the program, the Making Democracy Work, the campaign for Making Democracy Work is the program that's been in place since I've been president. And it includes it's an emphasis on voting rights, improving elections, money in politics, redistricting, and abolishing the Electoral College. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment because I will open it up for just a little bit of discussion here. And I'm going to ask if Janelle will put those 5 items in the chat for me. If she will, if you would. It was, I may have to share my screen again for that to pop up. Sorry. It was voting rights, improved elections, money in politics, redistricting, and abolishing the Electoral College. So, in thinking about those 5 items, um, we have to give feedback to LWV US about whether we approve that program plan, or whether we would like to make some changes or suggest some changes to that program plan, or whether we don't approve it at all. So I want to open up the floor just for a few minutes to discuss this, because we kind of won't have any other chance to discuss it until April. Um, so any questions about that, or any comments about LWV US program? Okay, I'm going to start with one then. I don't understand why redistricting is part of that program. We finished redistricting 3 years ago, three plus years ago, and it's not coming up again for 7 years. And so I don't understand why it's part of a 2-year plan. Kelly.
I was just wondering what improving elections meant.
I they have not told us what improving elections. They have given us no details on improving elections. So our feedback might be also that it's vague. Donna?
I assume improving elections is like passing the John Lewis elections law that allows some more uniformity across all the states. That would really help Missouri on some things we're not allowed to do if it was passed. So I'm just assuming it's those election laws that are at the congressional level that they would be working on.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
I didn't have anything to
down
add.
and
I'm
unmuted.
sorry, was my hand up by
No,
mistake?
other Elizabeth. Sorry.
It's
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, Elizabeth Franklin. I'm Elizabeth Darr.
Hello.
I really would like to see the league focus on things that are achievable. The Electoral College has a lot of issues and problems, but there is no way that's going to be eliminated. So I'd like to see us really focus on things that are possible, just not aspirational.
Okay. Thank you. Sandy?
Well, I mean, sort of along the lines of what Elizabeth said, but opposite. First of all, clarification about redistricting and your concerns with that. Because Electoral College, redistricting, all of these things are sort of essential roadblocks to getting accurate representation in the country. So is it because they're going to be tough to go at, makes them non-eligible, or is it more important that they're fundamental to getting things to more accurately represent the voter? I mean, there are tough, and redistricting is an ongoing process. Every few months there's another challenge and maybe a correction or maybe a movement in the wrong direction. But to me, those things all seem to be some of the crucial roadblocks to getting things in a more fair state. So I'm not sure why they don't sit as valid concerns.
Okay. Thank you. Brandy?
I think, yeah, to one of your points, Anne, about like this is a 2-year plan. I would like to see something a little more current that affects a lot of states. So like something related to education, like anti-education or the CRT attacks and the anti-LGBTQ, like some references to those, because they do have implications on like voter education. just education generally, access to voting, because if you can't get an ID as a trans person, you know, with your information, those all have implications. But just to be like acknowledge the issues that are happening, that like kind of that slate doesn't seem to speak to some of those challenges that are being faced by a lot of states right now.
Okay, thank you. Stacy?
Hi, yeah. 2 points on the redistricting. I mm, I kind of think that if we only do it every 10 years, that's too late, because when we're forced to do it, nobody knows what we're taught, or too few people understand it. So I think it could be an ongoing thing, but they just need to clarify it a little more than just saying redistricting. Explain what they want to happen, and maybe it's just educating the public on an ongoing basis. And then the other thing is on money in politics. I think that's too vague. And just like instead of saying the Electoral College, they put abolishing the Electoral College. So on money in politics, it should be removing money from politics.
Okay, thank you. Kelly?
Well, when Sandy's talked about being more representational, that jogged my memory of something that we had a presentation on last year. I think it was called weighted voting, where it's not just the top vote, but you vote until you get more than 50% or 50% plus one vote as being more representational. So I don't know if there's a place for that to be advocated for in their program, or if that would be under improving voting.
Ranked choice voting.
Yeah, so yeah, I think you're talking about ranked choice voting. So
Yes,
you would like to
that's what
see
it's called,
ranked,
ranked choice. I couldn't remember what it was called.
so you'd like to see ranked choice voting as part of the program.
Yeah,
Okay.
that might be more realistic than abolishing the Electoral College.
Okay. Rita? Thank you.
So I think that, in my opinion, and having watched the league work lately, this goes somewhat along the lines of what Sandy was saying, and it's just a comment. These are very broad topics. Everything that we're mentioning can fit into these. This is the US League's policy, and I think they leave it broad and open so that they can jump in and help any state that needs it on the topic of the day in that state. If they really fine-tuned their efforts, it would eliminate some issues in some of the states. So leaving it broad, knowing that we can work on whatever we want locally and it still fits into their goals, is an advantage, in my opinion.
I understand. I agree. I do think it's a little stale though. We've had these same words for, I don't know, 6 or 8 years, and I think Brandy makes a good point that they need to update it, as that there's some, you know, human rights issues that could be part of a category. And I stand by I think it's too early to be talking on a national level as part of a national program about redistricting. I think that's something that we should be talking about, you know, 2 or 3 years in advance of the census. Yeah, but anyway, Donna and then Sandy.
Well, I wonder if they keep the redistricting there so they can jump in for litigation reasons for states that are, like we've had Alabama and Louisiana, that have needed, you know, they have purposely eliminated by race some seats actually, and they've been going to court. And I'm not sure whether we are involved in the litigation, the league on the local level or not, but I just wonder if they like to keep it there because of their litigation role.
Thank you. Sandy?
Just a real quick process issue I may have forgotten, but where does the state's positions come? Are we in that off year?
We're in the off year.
Okay.
Yeah,
thanks.
we just
Yep,
do
yep, yep.
local and national this year.
Got it.
Janelle?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a couple of comments in the chat. Lisa said a good goal needs to be measurable, attainable, relevant, and specific time based. And then Riva made a comment, just echoing Brandy, with all the new bills regarding education and LGBTQ restriction, we need to see the connection to how this affects the voting rights, their voting rights. And we do need to look at the study of new positions for these new bills.
Thank you. Thank you. And as we discuss this, and I'm going to close discussion on this in just a moment, but as we discuss this, I'm realizing that I have a question for the national organization, which is, does the national program guide our work, or does it guide the national organization's work? Because the vagueness and the broadness, rather, of the statements make sense if that's what's guiding national. And so are we just affirming, yes, we want national to do this work, or is this to guide us? And I will tell you, as part of the program planning process, national doesn't they don't give a whole lot of guidance. I went to a webinar yesterday to prepare for this. That's too late. So I have jokingly said that this is perhaps that was the webinar to prepare for 2025, because that's about when we should start preparing for 2025. So they are, as we have transitioned because of technology and because of COVID, so has national. And so I will do my best to get that question answered. Riva, and then I think we'll move on after Riva's comment or question.
Just quickly, Cheryl put a comment in the chat, and also what Kelly said is this ranked choice voting. Even Idaho has several counties that have ranked choice. So there are places in the country where this is achievable, and it's achievable mostly on a local level, like for local elections. So that's someplace we could start, especially since we're, a small chapter within Kansas or Missouri. Maybe we could think about that first, as trying to get places in Missouri to have ranked choice.
Okay, thank you. So I will tell you that I report the results of our planning, of our program plan conversations and process. I report that to the National League later in the year. And it is basically an up or a down. We approve the program plan by US as presented, or we don't. That's at the June convention that it gets voted up or down. We can submit suggestions. I did submit one suggestion last year. There of course was no change. It was presented as it was presented. So we don't spend a ton of time talking about it, because I don't think there's a ton of difference that we can make. But I will ask whether this is to guide us or to guide them. That's a question I have, and I'll let you know what I find out. So let me go back to the slides. Okay. And then the next thing that we'll do is review of our local program. And this was approved at our annual meeting in May last year. And the first part of our local program, you can see, was that we would form an exploratory youth civic education committee. We did not, in fact, do that, and we did not find a volunteer who was willing to take on that effort, that initiative. And so this year is about execution. And since we have no plans drawn up for this particular effort, we will postpone this effort until 2025. I hope very much that we will have someone who wants to take on this effort, which would be, starting a new committee and doing some research. But until then, it is postponed. The second thing on the list is the initiative petition. That initiative petition education shall be a high priority during the period from May 2023 to December 2024. For those of you who don't know what that means, in Missouri, we have the ability as citizens to bring a petition before the voters, to bring a ballot issue to the voters directly. So marijuana was an initiative. It was a citizens initiative petition that made it onto the ballot, then was passed, and now we have legal marijuana in the state of Missouri. The legislature has tried for the last several sessions to raise the bar for having something pass. So there are several ways in which they've tried to do that, and we won't go into the details about that. But we decided in May of 2023 that letting the public know what initiative petitions are, how they are threatened by new legislation, and what that new legislation means, because the language of legislation and the language that winds up on the ballot can be very confusing to voters. We decided as an organization that that is that is a high priority for the period of between May and December. And to that end, we have developed some new materials to distribute. We have put budget towards that, and we have put manpower towards that. So part of this process is determining how we allocate our resources of volunteer hours, materials, and money. So number 3, fundraising shall be a priority during this same period. We have raised more funds than we did in previous years. So we have been working on that. We've had some success, and I think we will have even more success this year. And then that we would continue to engage in the efforts listed below, getting out the vote, educating voters, registering voters, hosting candidate forums, observing our governmental bodies, tracking legislation, producing the Vote 411 producing the printed voter guides, and populating the Vote 411 website. So there's a website that is actually paid for largely and run by our national organization, but we have to provide the information, the local information. So we have to do that research. So that's how we populate that website. And then building the principles of DEI into everything that we do. Okay, and we will not review our local or our U.S. positions today. I know that that's something that we've done in the past, was actually to read each position, but I know that you guys will read it on your own. So please, please, please go take a look at our website, lwvkc.org, and look under our work and league positions and review the local positions. Actually, read all of the local positions if you would. I was going to reach for my copy of the U.S. positions to show you, but it's actually a book. So we don't expect you to actually have read every single U.S. position, but please take a look. It's on PDF. Please take a look at just how it's organized and what kind of topics it covers, so that you have an understanding of what the league has been interested in the 103 years that we've been working together. And it's also very easy to search. So if you need to find a league position because you're working on legislative action on the Legislative Action Committee, for example, then you will already be a little bit familiar with how to find the information that you need. Okay, here's the timeline. We start today, of course. Then the next step is January 27th will be the first election administration study meeting, and the committee will present what they have found, and we'll also talk about how the process works for coming to consensus and then writing the new positions, what study questions are, what consensus questions are. So please, everybody, go to that meeting, January 27th, 2024. That'll be at the Plaza Library, and I believe it's hybrid as well. And then during January and February, the end of January, because there is a one on the 30th, I think. The Election Administration Study Committee will be hosting consensus meetings. You only need to go to one of these. There's one in person and 3. I need to pull up Greg's window so he can nod at me. There's one in person and 3 that are, or 3 total, 1 that's in person and 2 that are online only, I believe. Nope, I got that backwards. 2 in person, 1 that's online only. Thank you. So that's January and February. And then on February 27th, the Board of Directors will meet. That's our regular board meeting. And we'll discuss recommended program. So we'll discuss any changes, because if you do see a change in our advocacy plan, if you say, whoa, we really need to do this, this just has to change. We could discuss that, and then the board will either recommend that change or recommend that the advocacy plan stay as it is. If there is a change that's been proposed, we will present that as well. But if it's not recommended, we'll present it as a non-recommended. The board, however, recommends no change because we've already planned, and we've got one of the biggest elections, one of the most important elections in our lifetime coming up in a mere 10 months, 11 months. So we've got a lot of work to do, and execution is going to be the biggest part of that work. Okay, then March 2nd, there's a special member meeting when the Election Administration Committee we will actually vote in positions. So we're going to do a little chunk of program planning early. Give me a head. That's what's happening, right, Greg?
I'm sorry, Anne?
So on March 2nd, that the special member meeting, we're actually voting in our positions on that date. Am I remembering our discussions correctly?
Right. That is that is something that is under the bylaws. But that will be after the consensus statements have been crafted by membership.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Thank
we're
you.
missing the February 3rd consensus meeting on that list.
Nope,
No,
it's
At
part
the
of the
Plaza Library.
It's part of January and February
Okay,
meetings. All of those are grouped together there. So
okay.
I didn't put the details of each of those consensus meetings. So please check the calendar and go to one of those consensus meetings, and they will all be listed in the e-voter. There's been starting in the last e-voter, there's been a lot of detail about that. Greg will also provide the materials that you can read in advance of those consensus meetings in the e-voter. So there'll be lots of information that you can get a hold of to prep for that meeting. So back to the March 2nd, 2024 meeting. That'll be a meeting where we will actually get a little bit of this done in advance. Normally, we have voted for new positions at our annual meeting, but because of the timing of this election, because we want to have the ability to advocate during the election season, because things are really important and have changed tremendously over the last 3 or 4 years, we would like to get those positions in place on March 2nd rather than waiting until April 27th. So we want everybody at that meeting too. That meeting, March 2nd, is one in which we will need to have 15% of our membership in attendance to make a quorum. And so we are only able to vote if we have a quorum. So please get that on your calendar now. And then March 27th, the board will share their recommended program with the members. So you'll have 30 days to take a look at it. That'll come from the e-voter email. And then on April 27th, we all come together in person in Zoom to vote on local program. Okay, so our homework is to read over the positions for LWVUS and to attend the election administration study presentation and go to one of the consensus meetings. Oh, also read over our local positions. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Any questions? Janelle.
Yeah, just for clarification, Lisa asked in the chat, where exactly are we supposed to read this material? Let's see, what exactly are we supposed to read and where is it? And I know after she put that comment, you did clarify about it being in the e-voter. Is there any place else we should look?
Greg.
Janelle? Okay, great question, Lisa. So between now and the meeting, look at your e-voters, and we're doing a rolling set of e-voter articles on each of the topics. And what those e-voter publications have is it's an introduction to the topic, but one of the big things that every one of those things has is a primer on the topic. And so, Lisa, if there was one thing that I could leave you with, okay, one thing, is to go to those e-voters, find the primer, and if you read the primer, you will be in the 99th percentile. You'll be the A+ student of the study. And we've spent time curating what are some good articles to orient yourself. Now, when we do the study presentation on the 27th, then we will give you everything. And that presentation will be left available for membership online. And we will have documents that are pretty much the study material for membership. So anyway, that's a summary. There's more to come, but if you want to get there today, go to the e-voter articles that have come out since over the last several months, and read the primers that are linked there.
And then I will add for the rest of it, if you would read the positions and for the local league and take a glance at how the national positions are structured. And those can be found on lwvkc.org under our work positions. Thank you. Any other, Jim? E?
Yeah, I wanted to make one clarification. Greg does in his group do incredible work in providing those primers and whatnot. They are too big to fit entirely in the e-voter. I mean, that would just be a huge chunk of it. So be sure to click on the link. We always put the first paragraph in and the last paragraph in, and be sure to click on the link that says, you know, the rest of the article is here. Click on that link so you can read the entire primer, because we're just, for space reasons, we're never going to publish everything that they provide, and they provide just some wonderful information. So you really please follow that link and be sure to read the entire thing.
Thank you. Any other questions? Sandy? You're muted, Sandy.
Was there a question about finding the summary of the national positions? Is that a link in our site?
Yes, that's under our work
Okay.
and then positions.
Yep. So there is at the front of the impact on issues at national, there is a shorter version of their positions.
That's true. Thank you for mentioning that. Yep,
Yep,
that's true. Oh, and Donna's got a copy of the actual hard copy. And
Of course she does.
I have at least one extra copy if anybody wants to borrow it. Thank you, Donna.
Peg put hers up too.
Oh, I can't see her. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Greg.
Rita has a great question. Where on the website can we find old e-voter publications?
There is a page on the website with e-voter, with the archived e-voter. However,
Peg put a link in.
okay, thank you. However, there is a gap between the archive past years that have been archived and the sort of the automatic website archive, there's a little bit of a gap. So I think so the old issues on that you can see right there on the website only go back so far, and then you can look in our documents storage and it's got some even further back, but there is a little bit of a gap. However, Jimmy and I both have the ability to resend a single issue. They're all captured on our website, just in the back end of the website. So if there's something that you're looking for, just let one of us know and we can pull up a copy of that and send it to you.
And I can, if on that page that Peg put up there, that was for the 2023 study, I can repopulate that with what we have in motion already on 2024. So that can look for that as a place where I can put the links to the e-voters, to the e-voter publications related to the study. So I can commit to that.
Well, and Jimmy might be able to put the link to everything that you've sent out at that up to that point, because they're all on Google Docs. So you could just include all those links too, which might make it easy to take a look at. Okay. Dave?
That's my mistake, and I need to fix that. Put all those e-voters in the archive and show Jimmy how to do that.
Thank you.
On. So I won't have to remember to do it.
I thought it was a function of our website. So what a double great question that was. So because now we have more functionality on our website.
It's a manual function, which I'm supposed to take care of.
Okay, so to answer that question, we have a promise from Dave that in 2 weeks it'll be better.
Hopefully this afternoon.
Hopefully this afternoon. All right. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Okay, Laura?
I just put in the path to get to the newsletters. I put it in the chat for everybody about logging in, go to Our Work, click newsletters, and then you'll see them all.
Yeah, and Kelly, yes, eVoter is newsletters. There are some discrepancies between the terms that we use and the terms that the website uses. So yeah, the name of our newsletter is the eVoter, but it does sometimes get referred to as newsletter, and definitely does on the website. So sorry, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so I have one more presentation to show you. This one I think will be more fun because this is what we're doing. So there's a lot of information on here and lots of ways that you can get involved. And give me 1 second to get the correct one up. Okay. Oops, wrong share button. Sorry. Didn't want share, I wanted slideshow. Okay, so here's the second part of our program planning. This is what advocacy actually looks like. So here's what each of the committees is doing between now and the end of the year. And if you are not already involved, which I know a great percentage of you are already involved, and so this is for you informational so that you can be informed when you talk to other groups, when you're out working in the among people who are not league members, you'll know exactly what's going on. And then for some of you who are new, you might see something that really catches your interest and you might decide you want to jump in. So we'll go through pretty quickly just what each committee is doing. And I won't read each of these. I also want to let you know that I will put the link to this slideshow. We will provide that in the eVoter next week. Or next 2 weeks, I guess. So you can come back to this and look at it anytime you want. So legislative action, tracks bills, they're the team that creates the call to action email, which comes out once a week. And we try to make it as easy as possible for you to, even on your phone, just click on a link and it takes you straight to the place where you can submit testimony, or it takes you straight to the place where you can look up your legislator, so that you can, as a member, you can weigh in and you can tell your legislators what you think about a bill. And we try to have a small group do a whole bunch of the hard work for you, so that we can give you all the information you need quickly, succinctly, so that we can, instead of having 10 people talking to the legislators, we can have 250 people talking to the legislators. We only weigh in on bills that we have positions for, but we will tell you what that position is, or we will tell you whether we oppose or whether we support a particular bill, and we have a position behind that decision. So Observer Corps, as I mentioned earlier, they observe governmental bodies. That's a really important thing, because if they know that we're there, they behave better. We don't interact with the governmental bodies. We don't do anything but observe. But if people are allowed to make laws and discuss things without witness, they sometimes behave differently. So the fact that we're there is a big deal. We also report back what we do, and they're currently not available on the website, but that's a discussion that we'll have soon, so that we can make those reports easy for you to find. So Observer Corps is something you might be interested in. You can see there what the volunteer needs are for Observer Corps, that they have particularly some Board of Education boards that they're interested in watching. We've talked a little bit already, well, quite a bit already, about the election administration study, so I'm gonna kind of skip past this one a little bit. eVoter, that's the newsletter that comes out twice a month for members, once a month for non-members. We have a public and a members only version. It is mostly the content is produced by our editor, Jim Calvert, but he is looking for a few team members to help maybe write another column, do some profiles, perhaps, not column, sorry, to do some profiles and bring a different perspective, and also proofread it, because it needs to go through at least one proofreading before it gets approved by the president. And I'm currently the proofreader, so I would love to have someone else look for extra commas and such, or typos. Okay, social media, of course, creates all kinds of posts on social media. And they encourage all of us to engage, to follow League of Women Voters on social media, to repost, to interact with the posts that are there. Social media is one of the best ways that we can reach young people. It's also one of the best ways that we can share information about upcoming meetings. We can encourage people to come. When we get to membership, you'll see that we have some meetings that are coming up, some gatherings, not meetings, some social occasions that are coming up that are going to be recruitment events, where we want to get people together who might be interested in joining the league. Social media is one of the ways we're going to publicize those events. So their volunteer needs are for people to help create content and give them some new ideas. So that's social media. Speakers Bureau, they fulfill requests for speakers. Other organizations, we have speakers come and speak to us about 6 times a year when we're not doing meetings like this. And we too are speakers for other people's organizations. And so Speakers Bureau takes care of that. They need some help with presenters, people who are willing to go out and give those speeches, present those slideshows, and also creating Google Slides. The presentations that we take out have to be vetted. They have to be created. They have to conform to our brand standards. They have to be vetted. They have to be proofread, all of that. It all takes a team. So if you're interested in that, sign up for Speakers Bureau. Finance. We're very lucky that we have a finance director who knows what she's doing because none of the rest of us on the board do. So she very patiently explains to us what all of the spreadsheets mean, but she needs some help. She could use some help with reconciling the bank and PayPal accounts and also working with fundraising to handle the money. We definitely need help with that. So join finance if you're number inclined. Fundraising. They are planning and executing fundraising efforts. I may have left off a word. I apologize. This year we are planning one big fundraising event. It'll be the second time we've done it. Peace, Love, Vote. We don't know. We do know it'll be during the week of National Voter Registration Day, which is September 26th, I believe, 27th, maybe. It's always it's a Tuesday in September, late in September. So you can look at your calendar and kind of pencil in that we're going to have a big fundraiser that week, and we'll need lots of help with that. We'll need help with people checking in at the door. We'll need help to get items for raffles and various other things. So jump in if event planning and execution are your thing. Monthly membership meetings. These are the meetings that we're having. That's the meeting we're having right now, is one of the monthly membership meetings. And as I mentioned earlier, we often have a guest speaker come and talk about a topic that we're all interested in. This year we're going to be a little bit more pragmatic than usual. Some years we have topics that are of interest to us and are educational in nature, but maybe are not directly related to the work that we're doing. This year we're likely, because it is such an important election, and it is so important that we reach as many voters as we possibly can and that we give them as much information as we possibly can. This year, we may spend a few more of these membership meetings learning about tools and strategy. Next month in February, for example, we have a representative from the League of Women Voters US coming to talk about a new tool that we've been researching for the last almost a year now on the leadership team, but which we will roll out to all of our members to use, which will help us get out the vote. So, however, there will still be some informative educational programs, and we don't have those all set up or picked yet. So if you're interested in what we talk about at our monthly membership meetings, please come to those committee meetings with your ideas and in your network. Okay, DEI. What the DEI committee's been doing recently is providing content for the e-voter. DEI has in the past created a DEI, a minority-owned business database, and so that database is still active. It's more updated than lots of the minority databases out there. Excuse me. We updated that about less than 6 months ago, went through all of the businesses to make sure that they were still in business, because we don't want to put any stale information out there. That's one of the things that we did at one of our working meetings last year. So that's up and running and still active. But currently what we're focusing on is kind of acting as a consultant for other committees who have questions about DEI, and then showing up at other organizations' meetings. We have had league members who are attending NAACP meetings. We are attending some events held by Races United and some other, and I can't remember the other one I'm going to, but some other organizations, so that we can increase the amount of collaboration we do with other organizations in town, and so that we can also do some listening to other communities and just learn from going and being there. But also writing articles. So we are in need of article writers. So if you like to write articles and you're interested in issues of DEI, please contact us. And then membership, I alluded to some of the recruiting events that we have coming up. So I think probably Laura's putting some of those dates and information in the chat right now. We're going to try to recruit new members through personal contact. The tool that we're rolling out next month at the member meeting, that will help as well with us recruiting new members. So they also need some help with some other nuts and bolts things that you can read there. So that's what membership is up to. Voter registration. I really liked Becky's email the other day that she said it was a voter registration tsunami. That is a committee that's going to be very, very busy this year. All of the committees are going to be very, very busy this year, but there's a real uptick in voter registration. We register voters 24/7, 365. Is that the right number of days in a year? Anyway, we do it all the time, but the requests go way up when we get closer to an election, and if it's a presidential election, that's exponential. So check the volunteer page frequently. That's a thing you should do no matter what, is check the volunteer page frequently. When we're done, when I'm done with this, I will actually go and show you the volunteer page. Forums holds candidate forums. These are really valued in our community, the candidate forums. This is a chance for voters to really get to hear what the candidates have to say from their own lips. We had, I think, more than 3,000 views on our YouTube channel for candidate forums. So they need help. They need volunteers. They need moderators, timers. Oh, that's a misprint. Timers, tech hosts. They need people to research candidates, come up with good questions. So jump on that team if that sounds of interest to you. These are going to be really important this year. Get out the vote. Here's another committee that's going to be really, really busy this year. What they do is get out there, raise the awareness of voting, get people enthused about voting. There are a couple of committees. Actually, there's sort of two ways that you can engage with the league. There's the sort of planning side, which we've been doing a lot of, but we're not done with for all the committees. So there's, making sure that you've got all your timers and your moderators and all the people that you need to run a forum. There's making sure that we've got permission to go to the city market and that there's a table there and that everybody has all the materials they need. So there's the planning side of it, and that's ongoing. And so even though we've done a whole bunch of it and we've done our brainstorming part and we've done our deciding on our big initiatives part, we still have lots of little planning to go along to keep up with along the way. And we'll, as part of that, we'll have some new things come up. So when we talk about this is a year for actually doing the work, we don't mean that we can't do anything at all new, but what we do mean is we're not taking on any great big projects because we really are busy with implementation. So there's that side, there's the planning side, and to get involved with the planning side, you go to the committee meetings, and that's where the planning gets done. And you might take a little part of that. You might say, oh, you know what, I could take care of finding a speaker for the July meeting. Or you might say, you know what, I'll clean up this spreadsheet and I'll have that done in a week. But then there's also the one and done side. And the way to find those is through the volunteer page on our website. And those would be, I'll go to the city market and I'll show up and pass out Vote 411 cards, and then I'll be done. I just show up, I'm there for 2 hours, and then I'm done. Or I might show up at a new citizen ceremony and register voters. And I show up, I put my t-shirt on and register a whole bunch of voters, take some pictures, return my t-shirt, and then I'm done. And so for that side, you want to go to the go to the volunteer page. So we'll keep saying that over and over again. Go to the volunteer page. Okay, vote 411. They're also going to be so busy. We're all going to be so busy this year. But we have a whole bunch of people and we're a whole bunch organized. So it won't be hard. It will just be busy. Vote 411 creates the online voter guides for the 4 elections that are coming up this year. They do that by gathering ballot information and talking to the candidates. So they need some help with that. They also need some help because they would like to cross-train, have somebody trained to do this, should they decide to step down at some point, or we just need to have people cross-trained actually across all of our committees. And then the voter guide is the printed version of Vote 411, and we do that in October. We will pass that out in October. So there'll be 12 to 15,000 printed, and our goal this year is to get it. My goal, I haven't actually asked about this if it's okay, but my goal is to get it distributed only in high potential, low resourced areas. That we might this year skip out on some of the places where we've put it in the past. I may get some pushback on that because people like to pick it up at the Plaza Library. So we'll see where we land on that, what our compromise is. Voter education, we have to tell people in our community exactly what it takes to vote. Unfortunately, our legislature has made it difficult to vote and difficult to get the ID. And they have even made laws that restrict the kind of information that is provided. The Secretary of State no longer has to tell the public about changes. The only thing they have to do is put it on their website. It used to be that they had to distribute information about changes in voting law. They used to have to distribute that through the media. They used to have to take out ads in newspapers. They used to have to go on TV and tell people what the changes were. They don't have to do that anymore. All they have to do is put it on their website now, and they can bury it in the bottom of the website where nobody can find it. So guess what we get to do? We get to make up that difference. We get to tell voters, tell potential voters what it takes to vote, what they need to do. And then we also need to tell them about the issues that they'll be voting on. So if you remember back on our program plan, that our second thing was to make the initiative petition process and teaching people about that process, that is going to be our number one issue, or is a high issue of high priority this year. So it's a big deal. We need to tell everybody and then tell everybody else exactly what's going on with initiative petition this year. So please consider getting involved with that. This goes across committees. Every committee, every league member really needs to understand what's going on this year with initiative petition, because we do anticipate that there will be issues on the ballot that will make it harder for us to have a direct say in our democracy. So this is a very big deal. Nominating committee, we are always looking for more people on the board. People leave the board, their terms expire. New people have to come on. This year we're looking for mostly, I think, for board members. So if you're interested in helping to find board members, please get in touch with them. If you're interested in being a board member, please get in touch with them. Oh, and we're done. That's it for committees. Then I also wanted to give you show you some examples of materials that we'll be distributing during 2024. So so we finally get something that's not words and not quite so dry. So here's an example of one of our flyers. This is an electronic flyer. It's in color. People could certainly print it if they wanted to, but it's color, so a little more expensive. But this is an example of one of the documents that voter education created 2 years ago, that we will distribute. Here's another example. So we want all, we have 250 some members. We would love it if every single one of our members helped us distribute these flyers to everyone they know. We need to get the word out. And here's some printable flyers. So these can be printed and hung pretty easily. They have the QR code that goes straight to Vote 411. And these are just examples. We have a whole host of these. They're in several different places on our website. They're on the voter education page of our website. They are also in the resources, helpful resources section of our website. So, and they are downloadable. So you can just download them to your computer. You can send them to if you're a member of a church, you can send them to your church. We want them to go everywhere. We have no, there's no, copyright or anything. Just send them out. Okay. Oh, I already showed that one. And then we have also created a graphic novel. This is one of the things that voter education did, is to create this graphic novel so that we can talk to potential voters and voters who maybe who maybe are visual learners. So we've got this fantastic graphic novel. We have not a ton of the printed copies of these, but young people and lots of people don't read printed materials that often anyway these days. So it's available in electronic form. It's beautiful. There we go. So there are also some videos I wanted to point out. We did a ballot measures presentations. We did a series of those in 2022. So you want to check those out and kind of get to know what's going on with the ballot, get to know what a ballot measure is. And then that'll set you up for understanding what the legislature is trying to do to make it more difficult for us to have a direct say in our democracy. And then there's also some ballot integrity, a little bit different about the election ballot, a little bit different video. We are almost done. Let's see, we also have candidate forums. I wanted to make sure that you saw what those look like. So So we want to be sure that we go and watch those. The forums committee has found that often there's not a lot of attendance by league members, and it's a reasonable assumption that that's because league members are so informed, they already have the information, they've already decided on who to vote for. But we want to encourage you to go to those anyway. And talk about them on social media, share, talk about them with your friends, your family, let them know that they're coming up, let them know that they're available on YouTube, so that the more that you can mention something maybe that you saw on a forum, either live or recorded, then the more people know that that resource is available. And then we also have a weekly legislative update. We have calls to action that we send out once a week. We also contribute to the email that goes out from the state that you should all be getting. That there's also a weekly, ours comes out on Sunday evening, theirs comes out on Monday sometime. And so we contribute to that as well. And we have a legislative update podcast. I do want to mention that this is a new feed. So some of you followed the old podcast that was called Talk Vote. You have to actually search for this new podcast because Talk Vote is no longer affiliated with the League of Women Voters. It has switched to the Missouri Legislative Update podcast. So wherever you find your podcast, you can search for this. We've already got one new episode up. We have 2 episodes from last legislative session. The 2 wrap-up episodes are still available, and then the most recent episode, and the podcast episodes go up on Sunday night as well. And of course, we have business cards and buttons. I just wanted to show these are some of the things that we produce. This is where some of the money goes. We distribute these at voter registration events and at Get Out the Vote. And anytime we table, we're often invited by other organizations to have a table and just let people know what we're doing. And so that's another place where we might distribute buttons and informational cards. And then last, we have our printed voter guides. This is what that looks like. And so if you jump in and help distribute those, that's what you'll be taking around. Okay, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen because we are done with the official portion of our presentation. Janelle, your hand's up.
Yes, a question in the chat. Where can the flyers, a couple of slides back, be accessed to print them off? And I believe you mentioned on the website, but where would they be?
That's an excellent question. So there are 2 places on the website where you can find the flyers. The first place is under, I believe it's Our Work, and then the Voter Education Committee's page. They have links there to the flyers, and they're very clearly labeled. It's really easy to see. It'll tell you the name of the flyer, which is descriptive, and then it'll give you a choice for a color or printable or electronic one. The other place you can
Scroll all the
find
way
it,
to the bottom on that page.
the other place you can find it is under our helpful resources page. And so it's you'll have to, I don't know exactly where that is, but you can look for our helpful resources page. That's another place where you can find those.
That is also
Thank you.
under Our Work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Cheryl.
Yes, I have a call to action, if you want to call it, concerning the state spring conference, which will actually be June 8th in St. Louis. It's planning to also be hybrid. Yesterday was a state board meeting, which both Greg and I attended, but I volunteered to be on the planning committee for this, which has to do with the speakers and issues covered. So what I'm asking for is if anybody has any interest in certain issues that might be covered by a guest speaker at that June 8th conference, to let me know.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. 2 quick questions. And one, I'll go back to those flyers. They had general information, 6 weeks before the election, this is what's going to happen, like early voting starts or whatever it is. Will those be updated to have the exact date?
Yes. Yes.
That those things are going to happen, because I found that very, very confusing. And I want to make a comment, and then I'll ask my second question. That as an election worker, I found the vast majority of people didn't realize they needed a photo ID, and they would present to me in Cass County, they would present to me their voter registration card to actually vote. And I would say, no, I need your Missouri driver's license. And they some of them were pretty upset about it, right? And
Yep.
I talked to the Secretary of State's office about this, and they said, well, everybody voted to get this voter ID law passed. I'm like, okay. So I stopped there. So that's the end of my comment. The last question I want to ask is, when it comes to making up this gap that you mentioned, Anne, with respect to the Secretary of State no longer really letting people know there's been these really dramatic changes in the ability to vote process. What is the election authority's role in educating? I mean, League of Women Voters, we're all doing great work, but does the election authorities, and I know there's an election board in the Kansas City area, but in Cass County, it's just the little county clerk's office. Do they have a role to play in helping the voters before they show up at the poll with their little voter registration card instead of a voter ID. Most of them have it, in their wallet, to play in educating about these changes?
Those are really good questions. And my answer to the first question is the easiest one, which is yes, we will update those. And they also have those flyers, and they also have a date on the bottom that says this information is accurate as of this date. So you'll know if it's an updated one because you'll look at the bottom to make sure that it has been updated. And we've been in discussion about that for a week or so now about how those need to be updated. So we're in process. So yeah, absolutely. And then as far as do the local election authorities have a role to play? Yeah, of course they do. Do they fulfill that obligation? No, I would say no. And should we have to make up the difference? No, but do we have to? Yeah. And I could tell you that from personal experience, the Kansas City Election Board sure tries, but they don't have the resources that they need to get the word out. They don't have the money, they don't have the manpower, so they just don't have the resources. And as far as other counties go, there may be other reasons that they are not getting the word out. But I think that they all follow the law, and the law has been the law as of late has been written to make it more difficult to vote. That is by design. The fact that there is voter ID, yeah, it was voted in, but it was very confusing, and there have been lots of there's lots of wrangling about ballot language, and so we sometimes vote in things we didn't mean to vote in. And that's one of the ways in which we strive to be more and more effective. And that's one of the reasons that the initiative petition is a high priority this year, is because we don't want that to be another case where voters voted in something they didn't mean to, that they didn't actually want with the results. They didn't understand because it was deliberately made confusing. So yeah, that's probably, I mean, yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you. I wish we could say, yeah, they should be doing that, and we're going to go tell them, and then they're going to change, but nope. All right. I see Peg, Greg, Becky. Oh, and that's it for now. So Peg, we'll start with you.
Katie spent the last week updating our Vote 411 flyers, our one-page flyer, and the 4 quad ones, and so that we could bring them to today's meeting. So I had them copied yesterday. We got a mini grant for Vote 411 education. So we printed up 500 of the one-page flyers, and so far we've printed up 800 of the quads. So our first people that we're going to be giving the quad ones to are the voter registration and get out the vote, because they go to that reaches the most people probably quickly. So I sent Becky a note last night, and I'll send Corinne one today about how many they would like, because the $500 that we got for the mini grant, we thought that's all we could get because they are in color, which we think stands out a little bit more. I went to the UPS store yesterday, and because I brought our own paper, because of course we have lots of it, then they, instead of 79 cents a copy, they only charged us 39 cents a copy. So the more we can, we get a cheaper rate. And so I'll be trying to use the rest of that $150 to get more copies, but we'll make as many copies as we think we have funds for. The grant's over with at this point, unless Cheryl told me there was more grant money. I don't know if they'll give another local league more grant money. If they will, we'll take it and we'll produce it. But these flyers are good for the entire election cycle. So we don't
So-
have to print new ones each election. So anybody that wants those copies, send a note to vote411@lwvkc.org, and we will make sure we make them available to you.
Do
So-
we have those electronically too? Could you
Yeah,
put it?
yes,
Could you put that
Katie,
link?
Katie put them on the website yesterday. It's lwvkc.org/flyers. And so you can anybody can go there and get those flyers, and she's got them in the PDF format and a digital version if people want to just send those on to people.
Okay, great. Thank you. Greg?
Yeah, to go back to Julie's question about the role of the election boards in voter education, it depends. They do engage in voter education, but they are generally overwhelmed folk these days. Their job is very difficult. They have to deal with a lot of people that are hostile. They have to deal with the misinformation. Now, in Kansas City, the election board is working toward, they make a strong effort to get information out. They are creating a podcast. They reach out to the media when they test equipment. But again, if you go out to the local level, though, it gets even more difficult because in the local counties, the county clerk, they're dealing with things like boat titles and things like that, and then they have to deal with voting. So that they're definitely under resourced there. And then the last point is we're in an age where the disinformation of all of this disinformation, and it's really tough for these election boards to deal with this torrent of disinformation that's out there. So I mean that's the sad reality, but that's where we try to fill in the gap. And as Anna said, we can try, but we don't completely fill in what the Secretary of State might be able to really help us with.
Thank you. Becky?
One thing I wanted to say is, first of all, ditto to what everyone said. Election boards are underfunded and understaffed. People quit because they're being threatened. They're being approached in a very nasty manner. And there is under the auspices of budgeting, they just don't have the resources to do everything that we all feel like they should do. The Kansas City Board of Elections has a wonderful website. It's very wordy and geeky, but it does have all the election there. Same information. Same with the Missouri Secretary of State's website, although information can be very difficult to find there. So that's why we're asking members, print some stuff out, give it to all your neighbors, take it to the neighborhood association meeting, take it to church if you have a table for public information, take it anywhere. The more we can get the word out, the better. And if anybody has connections with local media, radio stations, television, other nonprofits that are simpatico, I think that's all going to be extremely important this year, because even though, yeah, the election board should be doing it, they simply can't do everything. So
thank you. Donna?
Which brings a question to my mind. I know we were in litigation, and I put it in the chat that when are we expecting a decision, because it was heard by the Supreme Court in November, and I think Greg says November, so I guess they're going to wait till after the election to rule that photo ID is a barrier to voting.
Yeah, what I heard at the League of Women Voters Missouri board meeting yesterday is a decision is not expected before November.
So that gets another year of people being facing this barrier. But then I will move on to my second question, and I want to put a plug in for March 11th, which will be the Sunshine Law event. We're hoping to have it in definitely by Zoom, but maybe an in-person, maybe a hybrid case. And we're real excited. Nancy Shaver has worked hard on our panel. Nancy, could you give the names or?
I'm happy to jump in. We have Dan Margulies as our moderator. Many of you may know Dan from KCUR or the Kansas City Star or his business journal career. He's recently retired as a journalist and is very passionate about Sunshine Law. We also have Bernie Rhodes, who is the local preeminent First Amendment lawyer. You may recall his name from the Marion County recent news. He's the lawyer who represented the Marion County newspaper in its recent controversy. We also have another request out, and we may also be able to invite the Secretary of State, Andrew Bailey, to join us. So we're working on that right now.
And she meant the Attorney General, not
Thank
the
you.
Secretary of State. But anyway, so please mark your calendars, and we encourage all of our observers to send it to the entity they're observing so they can be educated on this issue too. And we as the public can use the Sunshine Law too. So join us on March 11th. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Discussion points? Okay, well, we actually allot 2 hours for this meeting, but I'm happy to be done early. Janelle?
I was just going to say, Anne, there are so many great committees and great opportunities to get involved. What is the best way to reach out to a committee or get more information about a committee?
I think the best way would be to reach out to the committee chair, and that information is available on the committee page. And you do have to be logged in to your member account to see all of the committees and all of the contact information for the committee chairs. So that's probably the best way. You could also, if you want to just kind of check out the committees and what they're doing, you can also go to a committee meeting. Lots of the committee meetings are listed on the eVoter. They're also on the calendar on our website. So, and committee chairs, if you want to get more people there, make sure your meetings are listed in the eVoter. Be sure to turn those in. Be sure to list them on the calendar on the website as well. And then, of course, check the volunteer opportunities. There are a few committees. Voter registration, for example, doesn't actually have that many committee meetings rather, but they list opportunities on the volunteer page all the time. So kind of the answer to your question, Janelle, is a little bit different depending on the committee. But volunteer page, that's one of the best places to look, and then the committee page. Yeah, great question. Thank you. Anything else?
Yes, I would love to alert folks that Judy Ann, who is our social media chair, actually has put the social media handles in the chat. And if you do habituate some of these social media platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, you can friend the League of Women Voters and see what kind of content's going out and share it with all your besties on social media.
Thank you. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions or official business or discussion, I am going to bring this meeting to a close. I'm going to stay on for just a few minutes. I haven't read all the comments in the chat. So if you want to stay on and visit, feel free to. I am going to stop the recording though. And thank you so much